I want to thank you for joining me today for our 20th episode of our 20 for 2020 webinar series. So this is technically the last one in the series. However, on May 21st, we will be doing another one. It's kind of a special edition wrap up and update on our business intelligence tools that are rolling out on a pretty frequent basis now in the analytics module of our system. So we're going to do one more at the near the end of May on the 21st, and then we're going to start up with the summer boot camp, most likely in early July, late June. And so if there are any topics that you want covered as it pertains to emergency reporting, helping you solve any pain points, data management issues in your organization, shoot me an email, tom@emergencyreporting.com, or in the chat. Go ahead and put it in the chat if you think of it during today's presentation, because we're looking for some good topics, but we've got some in mind for sure. But if there's something out there that would meet your needs, let me know, and we'll see about getting that onto our boot camp for this summer. So I want to thank you all. I see some quite a few familiar names that have participated throughout this year, and we started this late last year in around, I think, November, December. And so here we are at the end. So thank you all for being part of this. And I know many of you have been with us from the beginning. So thank you. And there'll be a lot more to come here this summer as well. So can't emphasize enough, if you've got an idea for a topic for our summer boot camp, to please send that my way. Today's topic is improving your ISO score. So I'm going to take you through some slides here. Some things that I've worked on with our customers in the past, and to show you how you can hopefully improve your ISO score. I have two really great examples from customers that have improved their ISO score using emergency reporting to collect and manage that data. And as you guys know me, I always start off with some polls. So again, you're probably already expecting it. First poll is, what type of agency do you all work for? Career, volunteer, combo, federal, or DoD? And again, we just use this to see who's participating. Right on. All right, you guys are quick today. All right, going to close it down in 3, 2, 1. And we've got a nice mix today. And we got quite a few more combo participants, so nice. Outstanding. I still have no idea how volunteers in combo departments, those that are volunteers, can manage families, full-time jobs in another profession and still maintain all that proficiency they need to serve their community. So big hats off to you. I spent 22 years as a career firefighter, and heck, I was spending half my days off, training and doing things that I loved with the job. So that, having to keep a second job, unbelievable how you guys do it. So right on. And the last question, we're going to keep it real simple today. Just need to know, those of you participating, are you currently an ER customer, or are you interested in joining the ER family? Wow, looks like we got almost all customers today. Right on. All right, going to close it in 3, 2, 1. Nice. Yep, all customers today. So we're going to go past some of the introductory slides here really quickly here, so we can get to the core of the presentation. Thanks, guys, for participating in these polls, and we'll have more of these in the summer boot camp, and we'll probably mix it up with some other questions as well to learn more about you and your needs for data management. Okay. Do a quick introduction, go over our objective. I like to keep them short, sweet, and direct so we can focus on obtaining that objective during our presentation today. I want to skip through the background and system features. You guys are all users of the system. You know what we have to offer, and there's always more coming down the pike. And like I said, on May 21st, we're going to give you a nice rundown with the product owner and maybe even some of the developers that are working on our business intelligence tool. But today, we're going to focus on improving your ISO score. That's me, 22 years in the fire service, retired back in 2013. Time is flying. I can't believe it will be 7 years this September. And I've been privileged to work with emergency reporting since 2011. Little overlap there with my time on the job, and then upon retirement became full-time with emergency reporting. So glad to be with you guys today, and I'll be your tour guide for the next hour roughly. All right, so you know about emergency reporting, and we're just constantly making changes. I hope all of you have been able to take advantage of our form for ICS 214. If you haven't, it's report number 1797, and what that form will allow you to do is quickly complete that ICS 214. And I've got a little 3-minute instructional video on how you can finish it up in Adobe Acrobat, fill and sign. So again, that's to help you all with reimbursement through FEMA if you're choosing to seek funding through the CARES Act to compensate some of the additional expenses you're incurring during this COVID pandemic. So we're cranking over 7,000 departments. I think we're probably pushing 7,200 to 7,300 by now. This is a couple weeks old, just constant changes to the system, and the growth is amazing. So a little slowdown with COVID right now because everybody's really focused on taking care of their communities. But again, we're seeing still some significant growth and finding ways that we can better serve you all. Okay, here is our presentation for today and our objective. How can I better document my department's performance so that my ISO PPC score will improve? And so what this won't be is a deep dive into what the PPC is. I'm going to show you some aspects of it, some screenshots of where you can match up what they're asking with reports in our system. But I strongly recommend that if you don't have that document, get a hold of it. In fact, I could probably upload it here as a handout by the end of the presentation, and we can have that as a reference. So, all right, next up, I want to give a special thanks to my friend and really my ISO mentor, David Richardson. He's an administrative major at Midwest City Fire Department in Oklahoma, right near Oklahoma City. He was an ISO rep for 7 years, and his department received and continues to maintain an ISO Class 1. They've done it 3 times now, and he's led the way for his department. And a little quote from him there, but he's been very instrumental in helping me learn more of the nuances of the process, and he's a tremendous resource. And I guarantee if you reached out to him, he'd help you too. So just that kind of guy. Really great privilege to know him, and grateful for him being willing to share all his knowledge, which I'm going to impart a little bit of that onto you guys today. Okay, so the fire suppression rating schedule, the FSRS, all right, gives you a 1 to 10, and you can see how it's broken down. And then there are some split classes, right? So 1 is the best, all right. 1 to 8 have truck and water. A split class is a combination of truck and water for certain areas. So some of our more rural fire departments may have a split class, okay? And you've got to have a station within 5 miles, okay? And 1,000 feet from a hydrant unless mobile water supply is being used. And so those are just some of the high-level guidelines, and you're all well aware because any department that's an ISO 1 usually has it on the doors of their trucks, and they should be proud of it. It's an accomplishment to become an ISO Class 1. Okay, so here's a breakdown. This is the data here is back in 2017, but the curve here should be pretty much the same. And it shows across the United States the number of departments and their respective class rating, which, you know, it's a bit of a bell curve for sure. You've got some Class 9s outliers there, not too many Class 1s, a lot of Class 5s, and you probably, know where your department fits in on this. And so that's the company that you share. And we're always striving to get that lower number. And I'm going to describe 2 examples today. Mount Dora, who just became accredited, but in the process also lowered their ISO score, and they're in Florida. And then Thomasville, Georgia is another example of a department that improved their ISO score and improved their overall service to their community. Okay, so how does that ISO score, that FSRS, break down? So COM is 10% of your grading. The fire department is half of it. Your water department's 40%. And so you can see that adds up to 100 right there. But they have a community risk reduction portion that is 5.5% that are bonus points. So anything that you may be deficient on in the other 3, you can make up for by having a solid community risk reduction program. And I'll show you some examples on how to track and manage that. So what we'll do is we're going to go through the deck here, the slides, and then we'll take a peek into the ER account to show you some of those reports and how to manage that data. And as always, just chime in with questions if you've got them. Dwayne is asking how many we are listening in today. So we've got about 15 listening in today. Okay, so fire department, focusing on the fire department, which is 50% of your PPC. All right, and I'm going to look at those things that are circled there. And this is from a document. And again, don't let me leave this presentation without uploading a couple documents for you into the handouts, because this is from a white paper we did. And you can see that the percentage on the far left is how much it accounts for of that 50%. Okay, and then you've got equipment on engines. You have the item number in ISO, so it's section 512 of the fire suppression rating schedule, and then those reports in our system that help you address what ISO needs. So feel free to take a screenshot or write down those numbers. The first one, 963, will show you the equipment list for assigned apparatus for category. And in our reports, when you see the word for, that's a filter, it's your friend. I love any report that has a lot of filters. The newer reports, so like 1722 there, most of our newer reports have more pickers, more multi-pickers, more filters. That always makes your ability to kind of hone in on the data you need much easier. Some of our older reports have pickers, some are single pickers, but most of the reports that you're going to see here are going to prove to be very useful to you. And if you're ever wondering what the report numbers mean in our system, the only meaning they have is the higher the number, the newer the report. And so 1722 is a relatively new report. We're at report 1800 right now. So that's a pretty new report. 963 is an older one, but still some of the older ones are fantastic. They just work great. So explore those, explore our reports, but these are the ones that have been identified as most helpful to addressing equipment on engines. And again, I'm going to focus on the ones that I've circled. Deployment analysis, company personnel, that's using the daily roster, and training hours. Okay, so let's talk about 512.B Bravo hose carried. So calculating the credit for hose carried is as follows. And if you have any phobias of math, or you freak out when you see formulas, I'm going to go very step by step and show you how simple some of these formulas are, because it's very easy to get intimidated when you're looking at 3 or 4 pages of math formulas in calculating an ISO score. Okay, so don't be intimidated, take it step by step. That proverbial phrase, how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, comes into play here, especially if it's been a while since you've had a math class. Now, granted, this isn't hard stuff necessarily, but again, when you haven't done it in a while and you see some of these more complicated formulas, you're like, oh man, how do I start? So your result is going to be hose carried. That's the score, HC. Then you're going to take the length of your supply line hose, okay, plus the length of your attack hose divided by 1,200 feet, and that's going to give you a score. So you're thinking, well, how am I going to calculate how much length of hose I have in my department? I mean, we got 5 trucks. Heck, if you even have 2 or 3 trucks, got to calculate all that, right? Now you might know how much you have, 800 feet of supply line and so forth, and 150 foot of a pre-connect, 200 foot pre-connect. But if you have it all well documented on a per apparatus basis within our maintenance module, this part is a piece of cake. You'll know that score, and then they'll obviously confirm it when they come and do their audit. But you can have it all figured out by the time they get there just by running some reports in our system, and I'll show you that. Organizing it is critical. So if you're an account, and there are many out there, that their equipment portion of the maintenance module is, let's just say, not up to date, you're going to want to take a hard look at it and get it well organized. Here's an example of what I think is a terrific way to organize your hose. You've got a category called hose. Now, granted, this hose can also go into your safety analytics category for tracking it in the safety analytics gauge if you have our full safety analytics tool to manage in and out of service status, as well as whether or not it's had its annual NFPA pressure test. But organizing it is key right out of the gate. And so you can do it like this particular customer has done, where you put a length. I'm partial to just if you put 1 inch, 1.75 inch, high rise, any of that where you describe it, because within the equipment data set, there is a field called size, okay? Size. And so I put the length in there. So really, I wouldn't even have the length here at all. I would just have 5-inch supply line, and then within each of those pieces of equipment, I would just explain in the size field its length. So you don't use the size field for the diameter because that's your descriptor in the subcategory. 5-inch, there's your diameter. Use the size field for your length. And you can run a report that includes that field that will allow you to calculate the length of hose, how much hose you have in your department. Dwayne's asking, does supply hose mean anything over 3-inch or just LDH? So let's go back. So supply line here, I have my opinion that anything that you're gonna connect to a hydrant can be considered supply. So 3-inch, 2.5-inch would be considered supply line. I'm going to say that from my experience in the fire service. I would probably want to double check any definition that the ISO document would have to confirm it, but I don't think, Dwayne, it's exclusive to LDH, large diameter hose. I think it still should include your 2.5 and 3-inch hose. That's my opinion. I would want to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. If anybody else knows for sure, just chime in and we'll get that confirmed for Dwayne. I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing, not being an ISO auditor. Okay, report 963. Here's the report. So this is a really great report that you can take out into Excel. And again, you don't have to be, yep, thanks, Kevin. That's kind of my thinking too. 2.5 or larger is considered supply line. So Dwayne, hopefully that'll help you as far as tracking that for calculating your score. So check this report out. I love it because it's detailed, but remember, this is the PDF version. I know all of you because you're ER Power users, you know how to take this report, and I would take it out into the text download. The Excel download is good, and it's the data you can work with, but it merges cells and it preserves a lot of all of the formatting, the colors and the spacing and all of that. In the text download, you work with the raw data. You basically put a sum on this column, and now you've got your total length, and you can filter it by your subcategories. So you can quickly ascertain how much hose you have. And one thing you'll notice here, and my buddy Darren out here at Rock Island Arsenal, I got to give him a hard time. They had started, so it's already, we know it's 1 3/4. You don't need to put it on the size field, right? You know it because it's in that category. Put the length here. And to make your life a little simpler, keep it consistent in your organization and just put the length in feet. You don't have to put the word feet there. It just makes it easier to calculate it, but you can certainly do a text to columns in Excel to get rid of any text to be able to sum up this particular column. So does that make sense as far as kind of beginning to calculate how much hose you have for that particular 512.bravo section of the PPC, the fire suppression rating schedule? Does that help? And I can just feel you guys nodding your heads right now. Okay, next up is equipment on existing engine companies. So this part we're going to talk about is the pumper service test program. Average interval between the 3 most recent tests. All right, so your goal is to do your pump test every year. Okay, now you're still going to get credit if it's done, you know, averaged every 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5. Well, no, not 5 years or more. You get no credit. You'll still get some credit, but the goal is to get maximum credit. And so NFPA even talks about testing your pumps annually. So if you do it, you're going to get the maximum points. How do I track that? Whoops. Sorry. How do I track that? Report number 1515. If you run this report, okay. Now again, I'm talking. Did I say pump? Man, I tell you, it's Thursday, but it's a Monday. Okay. Yes, the pump tests matter. What I'm talking about here is equipment and hose. My brain put pump here instead of hose. So how do I track that? Easy. Report 1515. I am going to look at equipment category hose. I'm going to pick any subcategory, say my 1 3/4, for example, or all of them. And I'm going to run it against the maintenance type called NFPA annual test, okay? And by running this report, I'm going to be able to see when all of my hose was tested. Now, it's not going to give you an average, but you can present this to show that you've been testing it on a very consistent basis, and it will show you, and you can run formulas in Excel to check averages, I'm sure, but it will show you when your NFPA annual tests for your hose have taken place. And if you've got one per year in the past 3 years, which hopefully it will show up, you'll see a stack of 3 here. Again, I just ran it for 1 year, but in the date range, you'll run it for 3. If I've got 3 in ISO sees you've got every section of hose been tested, 3 times in the past 3 years, you're going to score the maximum number of points. That's report 1515. Questions on that? And Sean Sims, who is absolutely outstanding in sharing information, he sent me an email with some ISO documents from a local level course. And so with his permission, Sean, what I will do is either at this presentation, I'll upload those files, or I will forward that email to the participants of today's presentation, along with the documents that I have, so you'll have some good resources. Is that okay if I share that with the group, Sean? And I'll wait for your response and press on here. Absolutely, that's why I sent it, right on. Yeah, this is what this is all about, guys, is sharing information. And while I'm going to digress for 1 second here. I don't know if any of you are going for accreditation, but we are looking to start a Facebook group, users group, for our customers that are either accredited or going for accreditation. And we currently have 5 user groups. Now, ER supports these Facebook user groups. I'll post things there. I'll monitor it if people have questions. We'll support it, but we don't sponsor it. We let the users run with it. So Oklahoma, Texas, Pennsylvania, the DoD, in Arkansas all have groups. And so those individual states are just sharing information. So if any of you are interested in leading up one for your state, and it doesn't require a ton of work, it's just checking in now and then and sharing information. But if you are interested in being, the lead for your state, reach out to me and I'll show you what we've done. And we're here to back you on that. It's not something we have the resources to run on our own, but we've found that our customers will probably do just as good a job. So if you're interested, let me know. And again, certainly an ISO users group or combining it with the accreditation group would be something pretty positive. Okay, pressing on. All right, safety analytics, again, and to supplement what you're doing in the reports when ISO comes to town to audit. Safety analytics, now this is an upgrade, so those of you that either go take a peek at your analytics, you will have the organization gauge and you will have the wellness behavior gauge. All of our customers get that. These 2 gauges are an upgrade, but again, they will tell you at a glance on apparatus whether you have trucks that are in or out of service, whether they have had their annual pump test, and whether or not they've been checked on the period, during the period that you state that they should be checked, so say weekly or daily. And then if everything's in compliance, the gauge is going to move closer to the green. Equipment, all this is super simple. It lets you know that of the equipment that requires an NFPA annual test, such as hose and ladders, how many of them have had it and how many of them have not. And again, it just gives you a very quick visualization of those 2 elements of your system as it's entered into the maintenance module, and then it feeds these 2 gauges. Okay. Deployment analysis. So I'll let you read that. There's nothing I hate more than someone reading a PowerPoint back to me. So I'll just let you take a quick scan of that and how you determine your deployment analysis. Okay. Give it a second there, and it references 1710. And we're talking about time constraints, right? Compliance. Are you meeting your standards of cover? Okay, I'll move on if we're good. Okay, I'm a huge fan of this report. This is report 1641. It takes a look at the first 4 arriving units. Okay, so it will not necessarily get a full-on effective response force, but it will show you the performance of your organization for the first 4 arriving units on any incident. There are great filters on this report. You can filter it down to an incident type and zones and so forth, okay? And you can see up here, and again, a lot of times our reports, this shows you what you've picked in your parameters. So I said that the first unit needs to get there in 7 minutes. Any subsequent units need to get there in 10 minutes. Code 3 only. All zones were picked. Incident type was 100 series only. I can see 47 more. I used all stations, and my start date was for the year 2019. So that's showing you what you've picked in your parameters. And then what I like, because I'm simple, I like things easy to understand. I've got green and red. Green means I'm good to go, I'm compliant. Red means I'm not, and this will show you your performance. And then at the end of the report, it will give you an overall compliance for that incident and a per apparatus. So what this means, and this can get very easily confused. Now, we don't have the whole report here. You can see I split it. But if you look at every incident in this report, the first unit got there 24% in compliance 24% of the time. The second unit got there 19% of the time. My third and fourth units got there 100% of the time. Taking the incident as a whole, okay, meaning all 4 units got there in their compliance time, 4 out of 17 did. And again, this is just an example. So I hope that makes sense, because we always get questions on what it's tallying up down here. That's report 1614 for determining your response performance. Okay, here's one that David taught me. This is on-duty firefighters at fire stations. So one of the tricks here is that, especially for you combo departments, and half of you joining us today are part of a combination department. Here, this is an example from David's department. In your daily roster, okay, and you've got to be using your daily roster to capture this, is you can take your part-time personnel, add up all the hours on a regular work schedule, and divide it by 8760, okay? And so that will help you calculate, this is report 1173, by the way, that will help you calculate, that will help you calculate the on-duty firefighters at fire stations, because it's going to count the time that they're there covering, or that the time that they're there spending time at the station, as long as you're documenting that in the daily roster to capture it. Because you can see you've got the different activity codes in the daily roster, but make sure that you capture the time that they're at the station. Even if it's partial time, they're not there for a 24-hour shift, it still counts. ISO is okay with this. David has verified this and has done it himself. All right, and so what I want to mention here is 8760. So I wanted to confirm it. Why is it at 8760? Why do we divide it by 8760? So that's 24-hour periods, okay, throughout the year. So 365 days times 24 is 8760. And that's what ISO is looking for. Okay, next up is training. All right, training. You've got these categories, and I hope my list is up to date. I believe that it is. And these are the standards for training. Now, I want to make a couple points on training. All right. Now, there are a couple ways to do it in the system that I've seen people do. They organize their class categories by ISO, these ISO standards. Now, I know that the intent of the system, when the original product owner of this, my former boss, Bob Burton, who unfortunately we lost to cancer a couple years ago, his intent was to use our standards in the settings to be able to capture the standards in addition to what you trained on. So the training codes are what you trained on. The standards are the ability to apply one or more standards, such as NFPA standards, ISO, local standards, to a class. Now, keep in mind that ISO, and I have it on a good word from an ISO, and I don't know his exact title, but I know he audits agencies. His name is Mike Marash. You may have worked with him if you've been audited. And one of the things that they are now looking at are the training records, and they're scrutinizing them more than they ever have. So that is going to be incumbent upon us to enhance part of our system to make that a little easier and better for you. And so we've had some conversations with him. I've also had conversations with our product owner. There's two things we need to do. One, we probably need to make the objective, and I'll go into that in a minute here once we leave the deck and go into the system. But the objective, they are looking for more than just, okay, you've got a training code category, you've got a code. He's stating that they're going to want more of a description of what you actually trained on. So on this multi-company day drill, what exactly did you do? Now, chances are you documented that, but we need to get it into a report, because heretofore we don't have a report that includes part of the narrative, which would probably be too much. So we're thinking the objective, we could make that a required field, so you would have to put that in when you completed a training class. And then the next step would be is to enhance a report like this to include that. We talked with him, and I explained to him, okay, would this satisfy ISO with the way they're going to be auditing training hours? And he said, yeah, that would be a lot better. So stand by, don't have a time frame on it, but I know it's something that if we're going to make your lives easier during an ISO audit, it's going to be some things we're going to have to enhance in the training module. But organizing it includes adding those ISO standards to the standards tab in the settings. And so I can run a report. I would pick personnel that are firefighters, so I would exclude my admin staff. I would exclude maybe my prevention division, anybody that has turnouts on company training. I would bundle, create a grouping, and call them fire personnel, for example, suppression personnel, run it against all the classes that use this standard, and then I would get the total hours per person in that group, because that's the only group that it applies to, and be able to deliver that report to ISO. Likewise, if one of the groups, remember, is new driver operator training, I would have a group called new DOs, and any class that they took or training would have that standard applied. I would be able to see how many hours they had for that particular standard throughout the year or whatever time frame I selected. Okay, does that make sense? Now, I realize some of you are maybe using class categories, and I've seen it work. It limits you sometimes, and standards gives you more flexibility to apply multiple standards to a training event. So for example, if I have, say I have, an 1 3/4 attack with supply, that might cover company training. It might cover officer training for ICS, incident command. And I might be also training a new driver operator on pump operations. I could apply all three, in existing, because then the existing DO would be teaching that new driver operator. So I could have all of these 4 standards apply to that class, and then only run it against the personnel that it applies to when I deliver that report. So they're getting credit for what they're doing on the training ground. Okay. The community risk portion of it, public education programs. I even have another even better report here that we've just done since we did this presentation. But you can see you've got inspections conducted, you've got inspector certifications. That ties into training for inspectors. So that might be another standard worth adding to the standards list. And then you've got your fire prevention programs, safety educator training, public ed programs, and NFIRS reporting. And so this gives you you're doing this. All your departments, I guarantee, are doing some aspect of this at some level. Get credit for it. That's the section in the document. Again, these are the reports that you can extract from our system to help you answer what ISO is looking for. Okay. So, fire safety education in schools. I'm going to show you how to do this. Super easy. Each school must conduct 1 fire exit drill, okay? And you get 5 points right there. And if you're documenting what else you're doing in your schools, there's 10 more points. Use the events module for this. We are able to track things better than we ever been able to do before, and we've got a killer report that you could show right away to ISO and satisfy this. So I'm going to show you that. And there it is. So I did update this. 1774, there you go. That's your killer report, fire drills, right? 5 points just for that, fire drills, and you can demonstrate the fire drills you've done in your community and the number of civilian contacts. Now, I know they're not necessarily measuring that, but a good community risk reduction program will want to know that. So here's a couple examples. And again, I probably won't be able to celebrate it as much as Chief Owens here at Thomasville did during an earlier presentation last year, but just a snapshot. And then we use this so you can kind of think of your own organization. These don't have to be giant municipal departments, guys. I came from a 5-station department and reran while we were running. When I left, we were about 9,000 calls. Now they're well over 10,000. And so you can see it doesn't take a big department to pursue excellence. You just have the right people willing and able to do it. So there's a snapshot of them. And then let's talk about what they did. All right, in 2014, they had 32 structure fires. They mapped it out in our system, and they also mapped it out with their GIS department. Okay, so that's kind of the before picture, right? Then they implemented a pretty substantial community risk reduction program. They were down to 20 in 2017. All right, they also were extremely effective in getting out into their community and putting an OVAP score, an Occupancy Vulnerability Assessment Profile score, on every one of their occupancies. And this is a really good snapshot because it's a densely populated downtown area with all sorts of risk. Really low risk in the greens and blues, and then we've got a couple high ones here in oranges and reds. This will allow you to visually depict on maybe we need to focus more of our prevention efforts in our higher risk areas. And I should take that back. They didn't score everyone because you can see the black ones here still need to have scored, but they have scored most of them. They've got their water supply. Again, that's a key element, right, of ISO. And they're testing their hydrants. How do I know this? They're color-coded per NFPA 291. So I can see the results of the flow tests and the adequacy of their water supply. And so this is direct from their evaluation, just based on that quick snapshot of what I showed you from those previous slides. So the credit available is on the far right, and what they earned is that middle column there. They aced it on 2 of them and just got a little bit less on 1. So bonus points, 5.28 out of 5.5 to help improve their overall PPC score. Pretty cool. And so that will be another one that I'll share with you is their annual report. It's actually a link. Heck, let's go there. I love it when I embed links. And so they did a full-on standards of cover annual report from 2014 to 2017, and I highly recommend you guys taking a look at this as an example. Now, you may not bundle the full 3 years in one document, but certainly as an annual report because they're celebrating their success within their community. Here it comes in the chat. They're celebrating their success in the community, and a lot of what I showed you came directly from this, and it basically summarized that they have a serious commitment to improving their performance, and they talk about what they've done, and again, it's a lengthy document, but it's just a really great example that it doesn't take a giant municipal department with millions and millions of dollars to make a major difference in their community. All right, back to the deck. That's it. So that's a wrap on the deck. Does anyone have any questions on what I went over? And then I'm going to go into my demo account and just show you a couple areas that we can revisit from the presentation, and then we'll cut you guys loose to get on with your day. Before I do that, if you guys will allow me just 1 second, I want to see if I can quickly upload those handouts that Sean sent so you guys can have them and not have to wait for them. So give me 1 second here. Okay. Thank you for your patience, guys. Hang on, I think it'll just be faster if we do it this way. All right. And while I'm doing that, if you think of any questions, definitely type those in. There it is. All right, Sean, you are the man. All right, I'm going to download them all and get them uploaded here. He has more than 5, so tell you what, Sean, do me a favor and just send in the chat which are the top 5 that I need to make sure I give everybody, and then the rest will come via email. All right, awesome. Back to the system. You guys should be seeing my screen now on the system. Move the PowerPoint over. All right, so I want to just take you through a couple items here on making sure that you've set your account up for success. Okay, the first section is going to be in the maintenance module. Organizing it. All right, now I'm going to assume you don't have safety analytics for right now, and so you can disregard those categories up here. Down here under hose, this is an example of what not to do. Don't create categories by hose diameter. Create a master category called hose, and the way to do this, because this can get tricky until you know how to do it. So I need to add one called hose. All right, and so I don't want to use the safety analytics ones. I want my own. Okay, so again, because there's others in here, I can arrange this differently, but I'm going to just call this hose main. I'm going to add new, and when you add a new category, any piece of equipment that you manually add, you can select which fields are required. Equipment ID has to be required, should be required, I should say. It defaults to being required. Now, I'm partial to getting as much in here as possible, but at the bare minimum, you're going to want size, right, for length. Preferably it's in and out of service date. When you expect to replace it, how much you expect it to cost to replace it, how much you spent on it. This might be hard to find, I realize, but if you can do it, it's going to help enhance the reports in the system. But again, going from an ISO perspective, if you get at a bare minimum the following, okay, so we'll go with the bare minimum here. We know most hose sections don't have serial numbers, but they might have a model number. They might have a manufacture date, okay? And then the type can be, is it cotton jacketed? Is it non-jacket, non-jacketed, just the rubber hose, basically the plastic, as opposed to being cotton jacketed. You can add that in there as well. And we want a subcategory because that will force you to put it into a subcategory. So now I'm going to create my category. And then the next thing I'm going to do after I've done that, I'm not adding a piece of equipment. You'll notice there's no button here to say add new category or subcategory. You have to do it from adding new equipment. I imagine many of you have already discovered that, but in the event you haven't, that's how you do it. So now I want to add a new category or subcategory. So I've got hose main, and then my subcategory is going to be 1.75 inch. And I can just leave it at that, honestly. We'll put hose there, add new. Okay, it's going into the hose main category. Its inspection frequency is annual. We're going to click add. And I'm not going to continue here because I don't need to add a piece of equipment. I am just creating a subcategory. And so now if I did it right, when I expand it, I have my category and my subcategory. And then you would replicate that for any other diameter hose that any other size hose that you have based on diameter. Again, you may have a better way of doing it. This is just kind of, from my experience, what I've found to be pretty successful. Okay, so now that we've got that all in there, don't forget the reports that we talked about. Okay, 963. And it's always fun in a demo account because you never know quite what you're going to get because so many people are using it. But report 963, remember, I'm going to focus on, I'm going to pick hose. I have no idea what's going to come up, how much we have here. I can pick subcategories. And so what this will tell me is, in my category hose, everything in my 2.5 inch subcategory, all apparatus, I'm going to sort it by, let's go, equipment type. and then I will get a list. And see here, I take this out into Excel. Now granted, this isn't a lot in this category, but imagine your hundreds of sections of hose. I go down to Excel, do the download, open that bad boy up, and I did the Excel download when I really wanted the text download. All right, so it's a matter of basically on the length here. All right, now see, they put 2.5 in there when that was, common mistake. You put the length there, so let's pretend that was 100. And then you've got hundreds of these. You just run a formula, and it does it for you, and there's your grand total. Easy. That's going to answer a question for right here, hose carried, right there. You're calculating this right away. You'll have it done by the time they get there. Okay, excellent. I'm going to do, let's see, how are we looking on time? All right, so what I'm going to go to next is the events. Okay, actually, you know what? Let's do two things. We're going to do on-duty firefighters at fire stations. So that report is 1193, and I want to just show you, and again, I have the results will be a surprise to both of us here. All right, but let's say for the year, the runner for all personnel. Let's see if we've got any closed rosters here. Of course we don't. Okay, so remember, if you've got a regular work schedule and you've got part-timers and you're capturing the time that they're at the station above and beyond, your career guys, those of you that are combo departments, and for those of you that are volunteer, you want to get credit here. And so you can take this, add them all up, divided by 8760, and that will help contribute towards that score. May not give you 100%, but it's going to give you some points. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, we've got a couple questions. I'm going to take a pause for those. Actually, one question, and then Sean gave me the top 3 forms that he wants me to upload right away to you guys, and I'll get those up there. If a section of hose fails, what do you do with it so it doesn't show up on the list? So what do you guys think? This is from Andrew. We're going to go to maintenance. So it's basically fails. And Andrew, is it safe to say that that hose failed and you either destroyed it or took it completely out of service? Would that be a true statement? I want to make sure I got that part right before I proceed with my explanation. Great. Here's how you do it. I got to find a section of hose. Okay, so this hose right here, let's say this failed. All right, let's just pretend, disregard all these pending maintenance. If this hose fails, here's how you do it. You want to take it off of the active grid of equipment. Step number 1, far right, click this little banker's box, archive it. It will then move it to the archive table and will no longer appear in that report. You still have all of its maintenance history. You still have that section because you click in the far upper right here, whoops, in the archive box, and there it is. So if you ever need to put it back, you can move it back to unarchive, or if you want to just, you've destroyed it, it's gone, you can completely remove it from the system altogether here. Does that help? Anything that's in the archive table will not appear in any of the system reports for equipment. We'll move it off to the side. We still don't want to get rid of everything, especially if you donate a piece of equipment and then comes back to you and for whatever reason, and you need to still keep its maintenance records. This will preserve the maintenance records. Cool. All right, Andrew, right on. Okay, so moving back to events. Actually, we ran that report here, and we talked about dividing by 8760 to calculate that portion of the PPC from what David Richardson has taught us. So that's very helpful, especially if you want to track people that are not full-time, but still want to give them credit for the time that they're at the station, okay? So what we'll do in closing today is go to the events module. And if you haven't explored this, think of those 5.5% extra bonus points that you're going to get by documenting your fire drills. Let me show you what I did in settings. And again, it's an example because I need to keep things simple both for me and for the people entering the data. So these are all my categories that I may want to track that are events. But what I did was, okay, I had one called fire drills. That's good. And then the types. So these are this is the bucket. These are the things that go in the bucket. So for fire drills, I actually put a prefix in front of my description. So on the drop-down list, it's in order by grade or by school, basically. Preschool, elementary, middle, high, and adult, and college. And so it's very easy. I don't have to, otherwise it's alphabetical. I'm like, I gotta find it. Okay, this makes it really easy. Okay, think of the end user when you're building this. And so what this does for me is I create a new event. And again, however you describe it, let's see, monthly fire drill. I always like to put I maybe do a little duplication of entry here, but I still like to do it. So we're gonna go with Henry Elementary. The category is going to be fire drills. The type, element, see how easy that is to find it? Elementary school, gonna be today. Start time at 8:30, end time today. We're gonna try and get out of there by 10. Okay, when I add personnel, we're gonna set the default hours to equal to the length of the event. Where is it at? Now, granted, I know I did type it up there, but again, it's where it appears in the system. Narrative, again, we would describe what we're doing, add the personnel, and again, I'm just gonna pick some people. These are my crew that's doing it. Don't worry, your points and hours, it should autofill because you checked this box. So hours should, and points aren't required. If you're not tracking it, it just appears here. You can keep those off. No pay grade, we're okay. It's just integrating the payroll module here, and it's part of what's been turned on in this account. Number of children, say you got 1,000, adults 40, and we have some senior volunteers, so there's 10 of those. None of these other items apply, but I'm done. I lock the event, create it, and now I've got my fire drill, and we go to report 1774, and I can run it for this year. I just want fire drills, and I just want to say what we've done in elementary schools, and based on what I just entered, I'll get this. I'm a big fan of what our team did here, what the development team did with the events, and then this particular report is great for community risk reduction. Okay, so guys, that's a wrap on today's presentation. Does anyone have any questions? And go ahead and type them in, and I'm going to get those documents up to the in the handouts here for you all. So give me just a minute, so you'll have those. Sean says FSRS. Let me move this off. So stand by for some good docs, and then I'll probably get you some more here via email later on today. And again, I can't thank you guys enough for joining me in all these presentations we've done throughout the year. Okay, FSRS, there's one. Here it comes. We'll let that load. You guys should see them starting to populate on your handouts in the go-to webinar control panel. Okay, here comes another, Form 0500. This is super helpful, Sean. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to studying these. Pre-survey, apparatus and equipment. Actually, I'll be able to get two more in here. So anybody want to take on their state and Facebook and create a user group for your state if we don't have one already? And I got one more file coming your way. And then anything that I didn't send will be coming to all of you via email later on today. And so credit, Sean wants to make sure credit goes to the Westmoreland Community College. It was a great talk strictly on ISO by some ISO folks. So you can trust the source here, both Sean and Westmoreland Community College. Is one the duplicate by mistake? You're probably right. I must have double loaded. Stand by. We'll get rid of that one and upload a different one. Thanks for that catch. Basic. Okay, let's try this one. These should all be different if they aren't, let me know. And you should have a total of 5 handouts there. I'm going to take a quick screenshot of that so I can send you guys different ones on the follow-up. And that'll get you started. And then thanks to Sean Sims for sharing that. And we'll make sure that you get the other ones and then also some of the ones we produced in-house here at Emergency Reporting. So guys, thank you very much.